Refusing to accept the status quo also defines the work of our final Make Your Mark presenter. Today, 2021 Tillman Scholar and educator Erika Neuman, an Army veteran and a doctoral candidate in learning and organizational change at Baylor University. Ms. Erika Neuman.
Think about your favorite teacher. Specifically, I want you to think about what made him or her your favorite teacher. If I had to guess, I would say that it's probably not that they taught you the Pythagorean theorem, or that they taught you how to spell Pythagorean theorem. No, it's probably the way that he or she made you feel. It's the connection that they made with you. It's how they connected, how they built relationships, how they shared their love of learning with you. Growing up, I knew that I wanted to be that teacher. And for the past 18 years, that's exactly what I've done. Every year, I bask in setting up my classroom, going and finding those back-to-school bargains, smelling those new school supplies, meeting a new batch of kids every year. I loved it. And then, last year, I walked away. I walked away from my classroom. I walked away from what I was called to do from the time that I was 5 years old. I walked away from the only career path that I had ever envisioned for myself. It's not that the butterflies ever went away. I loved being in the classroom. I loved the amazing heights that I knew that those students were going to achieve with me that year. Now, my own educational journey definitely was not ideal. From kindergarten through 8th grade, I never started and finished a school year at the same place. Now, I wish I could say it was because my parents were in the military, but in fact, my dad just couldn't balance a budget, and so we moved from one rental property to another. I finally managed to spend 3 whole years at one high school. But that was only after leaving an abusive home, sleeping on people's couches most of the time, and graduating a year early. Then, with the help of the Upward Bound program and some incredibly amazing and kind people, 4 years later, I earned my bachelor's degree, and a year after that, I earned my master's degree, and I was finally ready to start my teaching career. But it was about that time that I felt a different calling. I felt a calling to serve in our military. And so a short 2 years later, I found myself in Tikrit, Iraq, as a psychological operations specialist, serving in the U.S. Army Reserves, winning the hearts and minds of the Iraqi people. And as you can see, my love for children never went away. It was persistent, and it helped me to connect with the Iraqi people and build relationships with their families and with their parents. Then, after getting home, I was anxious, I was ready. Now I was ready to start teaching. Then a whole new set of battles ensued. Now, clearly teachers don't go into education for the money or for the fame. We go into education to create leaders and to create lifelong learners. But a lot of people don't really know what goes into being a teacher. I spend long hours preparing lessons and grading papers and sitting through planning meetings and committee meetings, analyzing testing data, progress monitoring, communicating with parents, tending to social emotional needs, setting up science labs and math explorations. None of that bothered me. I loved all of that. I knew the difference that I was making in my classroom with my students. So then you might be wondering, what was the problem? Why'd you leave? I can tell you that I didn't leave because of my students. I lived for my students. I loved challenging each and every one of my students in a way that was completely appropriate and unique to each one of them. I loved challenging my high achievers and making sure that my struggling learners experienced success. And as far as children's behaviors, I knew that those behaviors were just symptoms of something else, something greater than that child, something that they were having to deal with. And I knew that when they were lashing out at me, it was because I was their safe space. They could lash out at me, and they knew that at the end of the day, I was going to love them just the same. And they probably didn't have that at home. They probably went home and maybe didn't even have anybody that lashed out at, or to lash out to. Or maybe if they did lash out, it meant that they weren't going to get dinner, or even worse. I couldn't blame them. It was, though, all of the other stuff. The lack of respect as a professional when leaders suggest that anybody off the street could do my job, and that educators are merely overpriced babysitters. I teach students how to think critically. I teach them how to persevere through tough problems. But you have to let me teach. Non-educators tell me what I should teach and how I should teach it to my students. Then there's the realities of gun violence and having to do active shooter drills with my 5th graders. My number one job is to ensure that my students feel safe. And that goes way beyond science lab safety. But you have to let me teach. I teach students to value who they are and to have self-worth. And I let them know that who they are is amazing, exactly the way that they are. But then there's accountability measures that require more time annotating and documenting what I'm doing for my struggling learners than giving me time to actually work with my struggling learners. Just let me teach. Teaching has become this transactional process that's tainted by all of these politics rather than just an educational journey that we allow our children to go on. It should be designed and built for these learners. And I'm not alone. I'm sure you've seen in the news, thousands of teachers just this year have left the classroom, citing reasons just like mine. We want to focus on our students. We want to be with them. We want to focus on their passions and support their well-being. But while teachers are scrambling to juggle all of these different responsibilities, legislators are discrediting us and insulting our abilities as a professional and proposing school vouchers and charter schools as solutions to the broken public school systems. The irony is, they're the ones breaking the system. So basically, we have families who have the means to do so that are sending their children to charter schools and to private schools, and they're taking public school funds with them. So we're perpetuating the system of inequality with school vouchers and charter schools, and it's going to just continue to get worse with all of the amazing quality teachers leaving the public school classrooms. So how do we restore this passion and joy that teachers have in their classrooms? Well, start by talking to teachers. Find out what they need, not what politicians say that they need or what administrators think that they need. Show teachers respect through legislation and validation and pay. Attend school board meetings to share the concerns of teacher fatigue, because that's a real thing. Give teachers a voice. Give them seats at your table, at your conference tables, and at your dinner tables. Because they want to share their love of learning with their students. And I know it sounds hyperbolic, but these children, they are the future, everyone's future, not just your children at home or my children at home. All of them. And they all of these children deserve the best education that we can give them. Thank you.